Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com, as well as Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, etc., etc., etc. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to Friday. It's the one day a week that we dedicate to the Second Amendment and to talking about guns and gun rights and firearms laws and, you know what it is. It's all kinds of stuff. Big show today. We've got lots of good things to talk about and lots of people to talk about it with. By lots, I mean one. We're going to start off with a first-time guest who is going to be coming in and discussing things with us. Kind of excited about it. Darwin Nercesian are going to be our guest here in just a second. He's a friend of David Codrea, our good friend for many years here on the program, who's written for many different things. Darwin is one of his cohorts over at the Firearms News. He also writes for TTAG, The Truth About Guns, the Firearms blog, Gun Made. He is a Gundy award-winning writer, and so much more. It's going to be a fun discussion here in just a second. And we're going to, I'm sorry, it was a nominee, he wasn't a winner, but everybody's a winner in my book. Everybody's a winner, right? We all get a trophy. Anyway, we're going to talk with him here in just a hot second. In hour 2, we'll take some phone calls and go over some other headlines. And then, of course, as always, it's going to be the weekend movie review and more. I don't know what you guys are doing tomorrow. If you're down in the South Central Peninsula area down near Homer, but tomorrow is the big Winter King fishing tournament. So it's the Winter King Salmon tourney starting at 9 a.m. And we're going to be broadcasting on and off all day on our stations KGTL down here on the peninsula. So if you want to come down and say hi, we'll be down there at the head shed out at the harbor, counting fish, counting people, counting boats. Should be a big chunk. It's been so nice, and I think it's going to be nice again today, tomorrow for the thing. So if you haven't registered yet, you need to get your registration on, get your boats in the water, and be ready to go out there and get yourself a chance to win thousands of dollars in prizes for the Winter King salmon. You can go to homerwinterking.com to register for that. So check it out. But we'll be out there tomorrow. Okay. That's it. That's what we're ready. Let's do this thing. Let's get to it. We've got joining us on the program this morning, as I mentioned, Darwin Nercesian, who is going to come on board and join us for the first time. Boy, is he in for a surprise. Let's get it going on. Darwin Nercesian here this morning with us on board right now. Good morning, Darwin. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing good. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from myself there from your speakers. I'll have to. I'll ride the mute button here for a second because you're not wearing headphones. All right, let's.
I can put them on if you want.
Yeah, I mean maybe that way we're not hearing the burp. I sound like Charlie Brown's. A silent parent somewhere in the background there, a not so silent parent. So let's get to that. So Darwin does a lot of writing and has a lot of fun. And I've been going through his stuff. He was kind enough to actually reach out to me after my last interview with David Codrea, and I appreciate that. Lots of good stuff out there. And so I want to welcome you to the program. Thanks for reaching out to me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Does this sound a little bit better?
Oh yeah. No more echo. That's good. Sometimes that fancy echo cancellation doesn't work quite like it's supposed to. So that's how it works. Darwin, first of all, let's just talk about you for a minute before we get into some of the stories. We've got you for the full hour here, and you've been writing about some good stuff that I really want to get into. But first, let's talk a little bit about yourself, your background, who you are, where you came from, what got you started in the writing game. Especially writing for Second Amendment stuff. So let's get a little bit of backstory. Give me some of your origin story.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that doesn't get me in trouble. So I was actually born and raised in the bad place, and by that I mean Southern California. So they weren't too Second Amendment friendly, and they still aren't, and it's progressively gotten worse. It wasn't until later in life, I had traveled a lot, and I'd always shot guns since probably like 16 years old, going to the range, then later on shooting USPSA and IPSC matches, having a lot of fun. And it just wasn't until later on in life that I decided to pick up and leave. So some years back, I moved to Wyoming, and, I'd already had a background in photography and some marketing. I had a lot of interesting professions. I used to work in intelligence contracting, mostly in domestic terrorism. So I had, kind of a varied background. And when I moved to Wyoming, I started working for a really great dealer in the firearms community, RTG Parts. And, I was their director of marketing, had a great time there. It was my first sort of mix of the marketing background with my love for firearms and shooting sports and stuff like that. So, from there, I made an unfortunate decision to move to Las Vegas because I loved living in Wyoming. And I did that because I was working as a marketing director and a brand manager for a couple firearms manufacturers for about 2 years. And last year, I transitioned to writing full time, starting with my writing position at TFB, the firearm blog. And that grew. I quickly started working for The Truth About Guns and then Firearms News Magazine. And when I no longer had to live in a particular place anymore, I packed it up and we got a ranch up in South Dakota and out in the middle of nowhere. And that's where I live and shoot guns and write all day long.
Well, that sounds horrible. It sounds like a horrible deal. I mean, what more could a guy ask for? What made you, obviously being a marketing guy myself, I mean, I can understand some of the appeal, but what made you transition over to just the strict writing? Did you feel like that was, was it an outlet? Was it writing about firearms to begin with? Or was it writing about other things? Or did you, what caused you to transition fully into writing about firearms?
I've always liked writing. I really liked it in college. I had a great time with a lot of my writing professors. So, and I had written a lot for blogs and publications for the manufacturers that I was working for, doing SEO type stuff. And I just really enjoyed it. I had a good friend. I have a good friend at the Firearm blog who I'd sent some of my work to, over the years, and he liked it. Said it was pretty engaging. And when I just, I was done working for manufacturers, I think, and I talked to him about joining their team, and so that was my first time as an actual, paid as a writer to do this job. And I found it actually very therapeutic because it evolved to be very therapeutic because it lets me not only, shoot and, manufacture, send stuff over. And I love testing guns, and, I've got a great ammo sponsor now, Hot Munitions, and they send me ammo, and that makes life like, everyone's like, you've got it made. I'm like, yeah, it only took me 47 years. But it also became very therapeutic in the sense that I write not just, gun reviews or gear reviews, but I write a lot of two-way news. And Second Amendment news lets me call people names, generally act very abrasive. And, some people probably find it obnoxious. So a lot of people find it entertaining, but that's how I get out my frustrations. And, there's a lot to be frustrated with.
No, I mean, for many years, I called Firearms Friday my weekly therapy session. It was my chance to rant at the world and get it off my chest so that I didn't explode. Because there's a lot of frustrating things going on out there. And so we're always looking for an outlet. I can write, but not as well as a lot of others, but I can talk a lot. And so that's how this ended up being, kind of my same kind of outlet for that, to rail against the madness that we see, in the country and have seen in this country for the last 50 years, 50, 60 years. It's been well, who am I kidding? Since 1934, that was the first tact against American citizens. So we're going on almost 100 years now of attacks on Americans' rights and citizens. And it's good stuff. It's some really great stuff. So let's dive into it, and we'll drop over to The Truth About Guns first and take a look at some of the stories that you've been writing. I find it interesting. You seem to have had, and I had read one or two of your stories before you reached out, but I went through and read some of your back catalog there for a little bit to get a little bit more familiar with it. And you seem to have some of the same concerns that I did with President Trump, especially after his first term in office, and some of the things that were very concerning. I mean, for me, after the Las Vegas shooting and after the Parkland shooting and his commentary on just taking the guns and worrying about due process, on his actions after Las Vegas when he, was okay and instructed them to outlaw bump stocks. I was very concerned about that. And then when he was coming back, I was concerned that we were going to have a repeat. And of course, as we've seen, for the most part, it hasn't come out. Seems like a pretty stalwart defender so far. But with his nomination of Pam Bondi as the Attorney General, a little nervous because her history ain't so great either, right? She's got that they've been parading around that piece from 2018 or 2019 when she was AG, sitting with the president talking about how she really wanted to get this red flag law up and everything. There was some real concern there. And recently you wrote about the fact that her office has now missed the deadline for that executive order reviewing all the gun rights. It may not be the end of the world, but it is, again, a little concerning. So give us your take on it. Talk about the story. Give us the rundown on what's going on there.
Okay. So, in President Trump's first administration, and I'll preface everything by saying I voted for him 3 times. In his first administration, I think there was, you got to understand his background, and it may be uncomfortable, but it is a fact that, he is traditionally a New York Democrat. However, in his transition, to politics and, being part of the conservative party, we've seen a lot of change from him, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was really fully educated on the Second Amendment debate in his first trip out, as president. So yeah, he did make some pretty big mistakes with the bump stocks and talking about taking the guns first. Now this time out, there's been a lot of promises, and those promises hurt a little bit when he brought Pam Bondi aboard. Now, to give some context to Pam Bondi, when she was AG in Florida, she did support things like Stand Your Ground and Castle Doctrine. She wasn't campaigning against the Second Amendment as a whole, but facts are facts, and she did want to restrict purchases from 18 to 21-year-olds, and she supported red flag laws, which is completely unconstitutional. So nominating her, bringing her aboard as the United States Attorney General, that was cause for concern, especially after President Trump, had come out and sort of with this invigorated support for the Second Amendment.
Right.
Now,
wait, hold on a second, Darwin. I apologize. We ran a little long there, and we're going to bump up against the break. So we're going to come back, and I'll give you some of Pam Bondi's words when we return, and then we can talk about this. What we thought was, we were all excited about it. This executive order came out, and we were like, "Whoa, maybe there is some difference here. Maybe this is a new Trump 2.0 kind of thing." And we're gonna talk a little bit about that and more when we return with Darwin Nercesian from The Truth About Guns, the Firearms blog, Firearms News. He's everywhere. We'll be back. He's worldwide. We're going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty-Based, Free Thinking Radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right. Darwin Nercesian, our guest here on the program, as we continue to roll things around. We got Anthony, is says, riding and shooting guns all day. Now suddenly the loudspeakers and the feedback make sense. My guy needs to buy less LVPOs and tack lights and invest in some better ear pro. No, he had it right there. It was no big deal, man. Anthony, always a card, out there. It's good to talk with you, and I really appreciate you reaching out to us because sometimes it's hard. We get into a groove and what we're doing and everything, and it's always nice to be able to hear some new voices in the space. How long have you been writing for? For the Truth About Guns and some of these other blogs? You said last year you went full time.
Yeah. So last year around, I'd say August, I started off with TFB, the firearmsblog.com. And that was August. About a month later, I started with the Truth About Guns. And I want to say a month after that, I started working with Firearms News Magazine. So it happened, really quickly in succession. And I pretty much, after starting working for Firearms News Magazine, I said, this is what I want to do full time. And that's when we picked up and left Las Vegas and moved out here to South Dakota.
Yeah. What kind of ranch do you have in South Dakota? What kind of, is it really a ranch? Is it a working ranch, or are you just kind of playing cowboy? What are you doing?
No, not even playing cowboy so much as I like to LARP around the ranch and, shoot my guns. But, it wasn't a working ranch when we moved here. It is in the middle of nowhere. We don't have neighbors for miles.
Right.
So, and we don't have a town for about 20 minutes, and that you could throw a stone from one end of town to the other. So it's we're pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. We don't have, having moved out here in, I want to say, it was late October. We haven't, and then going through the winter, we haven't brought in any livestock yet. We're planning on doing some stuff, but pretty much this is, I like to run around with a rifle, shoot steel targets, and just generally have fun. This is the life I kind of dreamed about my whole life.
Yeah, everybody in the chat room is now drooling about the fact that you're just what are you doing? I'm just running around shooting targets all day. I mean, what else? And I got an ammo sponsor, so no problem on having to feed the beast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That must be pretty nice.
I feel bad now.
I know. I feel bad about my life. I feel bad. No, I mean, I know what it's like, but moving from Las Vegas to the middle of nowhere with nothing around, it's got to be a shock. I just moved down to a small community here in Alaska called Homer, and it's a beautiful place. It's like the Riviera of Alaska, but, it's about 9,000 people in town, and it's not much of a town as far as the size of it comparatively, so I know what you mean when you're like, no more Costco, no more easy access to things at the Home Depot or whatever, or everything else. It definitely is it's a lifestyle change for sure.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, we buy our meat by the cow. So, and stick it in freezers. We burn our trash, which is a first for me, because there's no trash pickup.
Right.
There's definitely a learning curve, but if you're the type of person who just, wants to be left alone and, live out in nature and do whatever you like, it's really a dream. It's everything I thought it could be, and then some. So I'm never leaving.
Good for you. Good for you for living the dream. And and you found it fairly early. Some of us, it's taken a while to get to where we need to, and you found it fairly early. So congratulations to you on that.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
We are about 30 seconds here. That's what the ding means. We're about 30 seconds from returning to the radio. And I always like to kind of mix it up a little bit before during the commercial breaks when we get there. Safeway and McDonald's in a town doesn't qualify as a small town, says Brian. We have one Safeway and one McDonald's. That's the extent of our big city living down here in Homer. Okay, fine. I mean, I went to buy a fillet of fish and it was like $7. Don't tell me about not being in a small town. You know what I mean? All right, here we go. We're going to jump into it. The Michael Duke Show.
What the hell's an assault weapon?
If we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
That's right. Nothing but protection guns around here. We check the tags. This one a murder gun? No, not that one. We want the other one. Darwin Nercesian is our guest. He writes for the Firearms blog, editor for the Firearms News, and writes for The Truth About Guns as well. We're just talking with him about some of his latest articles, including this latest bit about Pam Bondi as the Attorney General and the Second Amendment report that is being mandated by the president's executive order being delayed. They've missed the deadline. And for those of you who couldn't remember what Pam, why we were concerned about Pam Bondi, this is a piece that's been floating around recently. It got revived and people were acting like it was just recorded last week, but was actually from 5 years ago. Here's Pam Bondi in 2018.
We've been rewriting it, and we are going to bring in something called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. So if someone is civilly committed, typically you can hold them for up to 72 hours, but people are getting out within 24 hours, the majority of them. So what we want to do is let law enforcement come in and take the guns.
Good.
They're a danger to themselves.
Which you can't do right now.
Well, because without being adjudicated. So because they're a danger to themselves.
You want them to take the guns and
when they are
not go through 6 months of legal trials and everything.
Exactly. But we also have to give the mentally ill the due process in which they deserve, President. So what we're doing is they're going to be able to take the guns when they're taken into custody or into the hospital. And then when they're released within 24 hours or 72 hours later, typically it's 24 hours, but law enforcement will have 72 hours to determine whether they should give those guns back, or they can go to a judge and say, Your Honor, please keep these guns. We feel this person is still a danger to himself or others.
So this would not have worked the way it's currently constituted. This would not have worked with Cruz as it's currently constituted.
As it's currently written.
So you're going to make changes?
We're going to make changes.
Yeah. So again, his mention of Cruz is very telling here because that was the name of the shooter at the Parkland. We don't name him usually, but the president did. So that's the Parkland shooting. So this was part of our concern. But again, things were looking rosy. We saw the executive order come out where they were ordered to re-examine all the cases and all the positions that the ATF, the Department of Justice, had taken. And they had 30 days, Darwin. So where are we at?
So, I know everyone was celebrating the executive order when it first came out. And, I did write a piece about how the executive order, I really wanted to make sure that it wasn't a matter of putting a stick in the Biden administration's eye and only reversing the things that the Biden administration done. Because like you mentioned earlier, we've been under attack since the National Firearms Act of 1934. We have other things to deal with, like the Gun Control Act of 1968, the Hughes Amendment that was snuck into the Firearm Owners Protection Act in 1986. So there's a lot of stuff to deal with that didn't happen in the Biden administration, and that was a concern of mine. The delay now, 30 days, it's hard to really say what that delay is about. Is it the fact that Pam Bondi is discovering there's far more to the Second Amendment violations and restoring American Second Amendment than meets the eye, than deals with the previous administration? It could be. I've been trained over the years to be a little bit cautious with popping corks and getting excited about things. However, even with the delay, I am seeing things like the hiring of Robert Leiter for the ATF assistant director and chief counsel position by Pam Bondi. I think that was a really good move. And I've heard,
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but for those of you who don't know, Robert Leiter is a Second Amendment scholar. So he is a legal mind, a legal beagle who is a known Second Amendment scholar. So to put him in at the ATF, where historically it's been anti-gun for so many years, to find a pro 2A Second Amendment scholar put in that position is a huge deal.
Yeah, and my article about him actually just, I think, published this morning on thetruthaboutguns.com. And it links to a lot of his work in the papers he's written. So that's a great thing. I was also reading up on a situation with a suppressor lawsuit where the Department of Justice is now asking a judge to hold off on a previous ruling that was going to be upheld against a guy for basically possession of an unregistered silencer. So now they're asking the judge to reconsider. The DOJ is asking the judge to reconsider their own case after some. Can I say idiot? Well, I just did. After some idiot U.S. attorney came out the other day, and actually acting U.S. attorney came out the other day, and on behalf of the Department of Justice, started saying that silencers were not protected by the Second Amendment because they're not firearms. So that was a very quick reversal of tone, which obviously came down from probably President Trump and Pam Bondi. So there are some indications of good things to come and some change. I'm just proceeding with a lot of caution.
Right. I mean, this is where I said I said this a couple of weeks ago. I said I am now cautiously optimistic. Right. Whereas I was hopeful before, now I've progressed to cautiously optimistic. Maybe we can be celebratory here in the near future. And yeah, we're going to get into that story later on this morning. But essentially, a DOJ attorney made the argument to the circuit court that suppressors are not firearms, even though the NFA delineates suppressors as fire. It says it right there in the statute. And the circuit agreed. That was the worst part, was that the circuit said, okay, yeah, we're saying now it's an accessory, it's not a firearm, so it's not covered. And the fact that she has now reversed themselves, or at least put a pause on it so they can come back to it, I think is a good indication that things could be changing in that regard. And I'm really happy about that. Yeah. You also wrote about our sister state down to the south. Seattle is gateway to Alaska. A lot of us have to get through Seattle and Washington State, and a lot of us love Washington State. I spent my honeymoon in Washington State, touring the Pacific Highway and all the things. It was a great time. Still one of my favorite places to visit in the country. But them people have lost their collective damn minds down there in King County, and in the seat of power there in Washington State. They are. I mean, it's almost dystopian. It's like it's another country down there, Darwin. Yeah. Tell us about their latest maneuver here in Washington State.
So the latest maneuver that I wrote about is I call it a permit to purchase scam. It mainly because, and it's nothing new. Other states are doing it. California just proposed a law where they want to do it as well. Colorado's doing it. I guess they didn't get the memo that the permit to purchase a firearm is in the Bill of Rights. It's called the Second Amendment. It's an easy amendment. It takes 10 seconds to read. It's very, very clear. And so now Washington wants to have people apply and jump through a bunch of hoops and pay a bunch of fees and to have a permit to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And it's they're, like I said, they're not the only ones. It's a really sad state of affairs. I don't know how long it'll take, or if they'll ever reverse themselves of their positions in states like Washington, Colorado, California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts. I've honestly, all my friends that live in those areas, I've encouraged them to, come out here, or Wyoming is great. There's a lot of really great places to move where you don't have to deal with those laws. And it does affect those states, because if you take a look at California, they've been trying to find a way to tax outgoing residents, for a few years now. And they do have an exit tax in certain instances. So, it does affect them. And, if you want to put a stick in their eye and, also enjoy freedom and America, I encourage people to get out of those places.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. The problem is, And we've seen this in the past, and you probably saw a bit of it in Wyoming for sure. We've seen it it's one of the reasons why I think Washington has become the way that it is that we, by encouraging people to leave places like Southern California and other places, is that we end up with a Californication of some of these other states, because these people leave these states for a variety of reasons, usually having to do with, geopolitical things and economic things driven by geopolitical stuff. And yet when they get there, they immediately try to remake their new local community into, well, this is how we used to do it. And, not realizing or being, I guess, willfully blind to the fact that that was one of the causes and reasons why they left California to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first moved to Wyoming, it's funny. My boss at RTG, great guy named Robert, I want to say for the first year I was there, he would call me a Fed and, make a lot of California jokes. And then, you realize pretty quickly that I'm not one of them. But, I think encouraging conservatives and, Second Amendment supporters to come and, populate these areas definitely, I think, fights back against the migration of the wrong type of Californians and such moving to these places. So, I think it bolsters our conservative population, our Second Amendment supporters, and because you can't stop the other guys from coming over and essentially doing what you're saying, like, hey, it really sucked over there, but here's how we did some things. Maybe we should try it here too. And it just makes absolutely zero sense.
Yeah, no, it's definitely problematic to say the least. All right, we're talking with Darwin Nercesian, who writes for The Truth About Guns and the Firearms blog and so much more. We're going to be back with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. You can find him at the Firearms blog, or you could just search his name up, Darwin Nercesian. And apparently at DTOE_official as well on the socials. So go out there and find him as well. We'll be back with more of the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking gun radio today. It's Firearms Friday.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Darwin is our guest. We are in the commercial break right now. We got a handful of minutes here before we return, and we're going to jump back into this. It's been heartening to see some of the changes, and this is a question that I've been asking of many of my guests over the last few weeks, Darwin. And you said it earlier. You don't break out the champagne quite so early, but it looks like we're taking some ground here. We're winning in this culture war of firearms and the Second Amendment. Some of it due to our own doing of our strident fighting for it. Some of it due to circumstances, like COVID and the George Floyd thing, and people all of a sudden realizing that they're kind of on their own for self-defense, et cetera, et cetera. More women and minorities and first-time gun owners buying guns than ever before, even those who are more moderate or left-leaning or getting guns and things like that. Do we, are we winning? Are we taking ground? Or, do you think that this is, do you think this is a temporary thing? Do you think the pushback is going to continue? I mean, I know we shouldn't grow weary in well-doing, but what are your thoughts on the overall state of the fight over the Second Amendment and our rights in that regard?
Well, not to seem impatient, but 4 years is not going to do it. Not at this pace. We're going to have to have plans to continue doing what we're doing and moving towards restoring the Second Amendment, but also putting some type of roadblock in place that, makes it so it's not so easy to reverse the things that are done with the, political ebb and flow of, the next administration, the next Congress, the next Senate. So there's way more work to be done. Like you and I have talked about, this is going back to the GCA and the NFA, all the way back to 1934. So, it'll really depend on how quickly they're able to act and what they're able to do to put in those roadblocks so that it's not so easy to just reverse it the next time a Democrat takes office. I mean, I hope that never happens, but come on, it's we know how it goes. So I'm optimistic, but as far as permanent solutions, I really can't see one, and I find it really disheartening that I have a government that asks me to trust them and trust their judgment when they can't when they act like it takes some act of rocket science to read an amendment as simple as the Second Amendment. So,
right.
It's really difficult for me to be too optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, the government that, it's, I think that was another Reagan quote, the government that's, that's big enough to provide everything you need or everything you could possibly want is also big enough to take it all away. And I think that's kind of where we're at in today's society. It's part of the problem that we have now, that it's in every part of our lives. And so then anytime we try and cut anything, somebody squawks because it's in every part of our lives, and it definitely becomes a problem. One of the shining spots for me, though, looking at all this, is the fact that over the last 20 years, we have had a handful of decisions by the high courts that have come out and really helped shore up. And I've often said that that we now have the new three-legged stool of defense against, in protecting the Second Amendment. And that's, of course, Heller, McDonald, and now Bruin, and potentially a fourth. If Snopes gets through there, it could be a fourth leg of protection as well. But I mean, especially Bruin, that decision has had more of an impact on gun rights in this country than anything else. Would you agree?
Yeah, the Bruin decision, that was a great decision. My problem, and again, I know I come off as misanthropic and really pessimistic, but my issue is, even with the Bruin decision, we've seen cases in all these states that I mentioned before, in Illinois, where I call it the "what are you going to do about it" effect. And what it is you have legislators and lawmakers, in these states that they don't care that the Bruin decision is there. They don't care about Heller. They just proceed with some different language of the same old BS, and their attitude is, well, what are you going to do about it? Because you're going to spend money to sue us. We're going to spend your money to defend against your lawsuit. We're going to take it through the courts. And even if you win, we're just going to start all over again from the beginning after you do. Right. So until the Supreme Court is willing to put some teeth behind their rulings, and, I don't know, you and I can't, you and I can't participate in anything that would be considered contempt of court because we'd get in trouble. We'd see the inside of a jail cell. But these guys are committing contempt of court against the Supreme Court all the time, and nothing happens.
Right. It's kind of the ultimate expression of lawfare, right? Where they're just doing what they want to do and then making you prove the difference and putting the burden on the citizenry instead of upholding their oaths to the Constitution, right? I mean, what oaths? That's part of the problem there for sure. Darwin Nercesian is our guest. We're going to continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty based, free thinking radio. Let's do this thing. Here we go.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yeah, those penguins, they are vicious. I mean, assault penguins especially. It's like a trunk monkey, only worse. If you remember the trunk monkey incident, that was the... Anyway, welcome back to the program. Darwin Nercesian is our guest, writer for The Truth About Guns and the Firearms blog, editing over there at the Firearms News and more. We've been talking about some of the things he's been writing and some of the stories out there and, his hope for the future and what we need to do in this country to help protect our Second Amendment rights. I mean, it sounds like Darwin is of the same, cut that we are on the program here, and other folks have been, David Codrea especially, that we are absolutists when it comes to the Second Amendment, that the Second Amendment is the law of the land, and that every law that has been passed in regards to it, and there's 20-something thousand regulations on the books about firearms, by the way, 20,000 separate, different, individual bits and pieces, that each and every one of them is an infringement on our Second Amendment rights. Am I reading you right, Darwin, on that?
You couldn't read it more correct. And this is something that I deal with on a daily basis because, sometimes I'll criticize something that the president or Pam Bondi does, and people will come back with, "Oh, well, maybe we should have voted Kamala in," and that's just a really dumb take on things. The fact of the matter is that, as I mentioned, I voted for President Trump 3 times. I do support him, especially over someone like Kamala Harris. It's just that, my loyalties are tied to the Constitution, and they're tied to the Second Amendment in this case, not to a party, not to a person, not to a group of people. So, that's where my loyalty is, and that's where it's going to stay. I am thrilled to give Pam Bondi credit where credit's due, and also President Trump. But I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, and you're going to learn, the meaning of, keeping your promises, when it comes to my writing. It's my loyalty is absolutely to the Second Amendment.
Absolutely. And one of the most ironic things, and you just wrote about this, I think yesterday or the day before, was the most ironic things that I find, especially from those on the left, is this living dichotomy that they have, where they say, "Oh, you crazy people with guns, only the police should be allowed to have guns." And then 12 seconds later, they're like, "Those bastards in blue, they can't be trusted. We got to defund the police."
Michael?
Please. But wait, how does that, what thing? So let's talk a little bit about this piece that you had, which is, again, just another great example of why the only one's ideology is so flawed. And this one's coming out of New Jersey.
I think my connection just failed for a second.
Oh, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. So can you ask that one more time?
So I was just saying, this only one's philosophy that David talks about a lot, where the police are the only ones that, yet at the same time, it's the whole defund the police. Police should only have guns, but we should defund the police at the same time. And yet we see it time and time again. Historically, we've talked about this, in fact, that, lawful gun owners, especially concealed carry holders, commit crimes at a fraction of a percentage of what even the police in this country do. So we keep holding up the police as they're the only ones that should have guns, but we should defund them. And yet you've got this story out of New Jersey, which just proves that police are people too. And they're good and they're bad. And there's, unfortunately, it seems like more and more bad coming out. This is the latest example.
Yeah, they put their pants on one leg at a time like us, and you'll have your good apples and your bad ones for sure. The story of the New Jersey lieutenant who he was essentially stealing ammunition and selling it for his own profit. To be honest with you, the real issue with that dichotomy is that Democrats will argue anything that suits their purpose at that moment. So even if it contradicts something they said 3 seconds prior, they're okay with it. There's no logic or reasoning. There just no accountability whatsoever in their arguments. A lot of times their arguments are not even based on any particular train of thought so much as they are Democrat talking points. So none of it really makes sense. But with regards to law-abiding citizens, especially concealed carry permit holders breaking the law, we've known for a long time that these gun laws that only apply to people who are going to follow them, they don't do any good because
wait. You're saying that criminals break the law? Is that what you're saying? Where you say criminals ignore the law? How is that possible? I mean, come on. That if we just wrote one more law, Darwin, that would be the one that fixed it.
Sure. Yeah. The idea that someone bent on committing murder, taking innocent life, is somehow gonna give pause and go, wait a minute, does this magazine hold too many rounds? Maybe we should call this off. Like, this is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. These people should be ashamed of themselves. They should just crawl into a hole because they're absolute just shameful people. They're putting good folks in danger, and
Right.
And that's something that just really disgusts me. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I mean, because again, what's going to happen? You're going to because the vast majority of Americans are law-abiding, they're rule followers, they want to do the right thing. And so all you're doing is making it harder for the law-abiding people to actually be able to exercise their rights, to be able to defend themselves, to be able to be self-reliant. You're making it harder for them because they're going to obey the law to the best of their ability. And the criminals are going to have an easier time because now their populace will be disarmed or easier targets or anything else. And it's an even more dangerous point because eventually, as the laws become more and more ridiculous and more onerous, you will force people who have to make a decision as to whether or not, I mean, it's the old phrase, right? When guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. That's actually, you can read that two ways. One, outlaws will have guns because they don't care about your laws. And two, you will force honest law-abiding citizens to basically ignore your law and become outlaws because they don't believe that it's constitutional and they believe it's their right. And that's kind of the position that we keep pushing ourselves into, it seems like.
Yeah, that's very true. And and I talk about it a lot in my articles about, there's that big debate over, should we get rid of the ATF? What is the ATF? That's just the name of an agency. The agency can be put to good function. For instance, dealing with gun trafficking when it comes to cartels. Great. The agency can also help with, like my ideal ATF would be an agency that goes around state to state, municipality to municipality, and says, hey, are you upholding the Second Amendment? Are your citizens, are they able to enjoy their Second Amendment rights without your intervention? And if as a municipality or a state, you're intervening and you're infringing on their rights, like my dream ATF would step in, file a lawsuit on behalf of the Department of Justice and correct what's wrong and protect those rights that the federal government, honestly, it should be, it is their number one priority, is protecting your inalienable rights as recognized and enumerated in the Constitution.
Yeah, no, they'd be in Washington State right now, filing injunctions and lawsuits in federal court over some of the craziness that's happening in Washington, in California, in Hawaii. I mean, they'd be going like, nope, that's not what the court said. It's not what the precedent said. All right, down to the last 2 minutes here, Darwin. So we've been a little bit of negative doom and gloom, a little bit about, frustration. So give me some happy thoughts here on the Second Amendment and on gun rights and on the fight for the second in this last 2 minutes. Give me your thoughts on where we're going and does the future look bright?
Oh man. Okay. that's such an ask for someone like me, but okay. So I am really excited about Robert Leiter coming in. I'm hoping that it will signal a shift in things like the NFA and the GCA. And I know that we do have to go to Congress and change certain laws. But as far as rulemaking, I'd like to see that be done and finished. People always talk about suppressors coming off the NFA, and that's great, but I'm not really that excited about a consolation prize versus a cancellation of the entire infringement. So but I guess step by step, if we're going to keep going in this direction that we're seeing in the last 24, 48 hours with the Department of Justice, then I see good things coming. I'm just hoping that they can come in time before the next midterms, that we do well in the midterms, and that we're, hopefully able to put together some of the roadblocks that'll stop things from just being reversed, with the next administration or the following administration or whoever it ends up being. So, incremental steps, as long as they're in the right direction.
Darwin Nercesian writes for the Firearms blog, The Truth About Guns, the Firearms News, etc. Darwin, thank you so much for coming on board for us today. Folks, hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. We got more coming up. Hour 2 dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. If you got to go, be kind, love one another, live well. All right, Darwin, I always like to give you a final bite at the apple here. Anything we didn't cover that we should have, or any other, things that you want to touch on before we go here? We got about 3 minutes or so here before I got to let you go to rejoin the radio.
I just want to thank you for having me on. I've wanted to meet you for a little while, and so I'm really, sort of honored to do so. You mentioned David at Firearms News. David is someone I feel really privileged to now work with. I've been a fan of his, as well as some of the other folks at Firearms News, and as well as TFB and Truth About Guns. It's really kind of interesting to be able to now call these people, these gun writers and stuff, who I read for years and really looked up to call them colleagues. So I just want to say thank you to all of them and their support, and say thank you to you, Michael, and if you ever need me on again, I'm happy to come on and visit.
Well, you're going to get added to the regular lineup. We'll have you added to the regular lineup. I think the ATF should enforce the mattress tag laws. I think that's what Brian said. It'd be the BATF E&M. That would be the mattress police. Jeannie asks, what's the weather like in South Dakota?
The winter's breaking, but it keeps jumping up to 50 and then going down to 20. Honestly, 20 is not bad. It's relatively speaking, 20 is pretty easy. It's only when it drops to below zero and 20 below zero where any exposed skin starts to hurt. That's cold, but it hasn't been bad. And the snow's all gone. The ice is gone. So I don't have to worry about slipping and falling as I'm running around LARPing on the ranch.
That's good. It was 5 below in Fairbanks yesterday, up in the interior. So, I mean, I feel you, it's definitely a whole different deal. But yeah, no, we're going to have you back on. It's going to be, it'll be good. And if you get something hot and new, you've got my email address. Feel free to drop me an email and let me know. And yeah, we'd love to have you back on the, program for sure. And we'll keep talking about these things and keep doing what you're doing. It's inch by inch, everything's a cinch, right? We've got to keep the pressure on. I feel good about where we are in this battle over the Second Amendment. And I think incrementally we've been taking a lot of ground. I, like you, am an absolutist in believing that all these laws need to be repealed, quite honestly. Specifically, my heartburn is, I hate the FOPA, the GCA, the NFA. But I mean, the NFA specifically is the one that really I think we need to revisit and come back to, because I find that to be probably one of the biggest hindrances as we go through there. But we should revisit them all. We should have an omnibus basically that repeals and changes all those things. I don't think that any of those things should be covered. And I think we're making incremental moves in that direction. And all it takes is just bringing more people into the tent. Right? Yeah. Just finding the people who are gun curious and taking them out to the range, taking them out to the ranch to go LARPing with you. I mean, that would be a fun thing to do. So, yeah. Well, anyway, Darwin Nercesian, thank you so much for coming on board, and
thank you.
Appreciate you coming out, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was great being on here with you and with your listeners.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Darwin Nercesian. Again, from The Truth About Guns and the TFB, the Firearms blog, and Firearms News, and all that other hot jazz out there. Go check him out. He's got some good. In fact, if you haven't read this story about this New Jersey lieutenant who stole $500,000 in ammunition over the course of just what was it? what was it, Darwin? It was over 3 years, 4 years. I mean, to just $500,000. This guy was the range officer for the Department of Corrections in New Jersey, and he was in charge of ordering. And wow. He was selling it out of the back of a truck to a local distributor, gun dealer or something. $500,000. Who didn't notice that? I mean, they eventually did, obviously, but at some point, who didn't notice that? It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, I just posted that story up in the chat room. You can go check it out. Jeannie says, "Is that a new shawl?" No, I've had this one for a long time. This is my TAD. This is my TAD scarf from Triple Lot Designs. I got 2 of these. It's got skulls on it. Skulls. Love skulls and maps. Skulls and maps. Anyway, I was a little cold this morning. Had to throw that on. All right. Where are we at? At least South Dakota is a dry cold, doesn't it? Wet, cold climates are hard to handle. Boy, did I discover that getting down here. And I was like, it's 15 degrees. Why am I shivering like so crazy? Not thinking about the fact that I can see the ocean from my house. And that's probably why it's so cold at 15 degrees. Anyway, it's kind of crazy out there. All right, we're coming up on hour 2, and my mouse just started crying that it's going to run out of juice. We're coming up on hour 2. We're going to take some phone calls. We're going to do some news stories. We're going to go through a lot of that stuff and more. And we're going to jump into that here in just a second. So do me a favor, wherever you're watching, like the show, share the show, do all those things. I mean, there's 50 people watching on all the various platforms, and there's only 17 likes. I know it's really crass of me to beg, but you're making me beg. Don't blame me. It's you. It's you, not me. So let's get back to it. While we're in the thing here, just hit the like button, will you? And share it. Sharing is caring, baby. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show. Good morning, my friends. Welcome to hour 2 of the big radio broadcast. It is that one day a week where we dedicate it to the Second Amendment and all things related to guns and firearms. And here in hour 2, we have opened up the phone line. So let me get that rolling, shall I? Right here, 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. If you would like to sound off on something related to guns and the Second Amendment, we'd love to hear what you have to say. We'd love to talk with you this morning and go over some stuff. Joining us at the end of the show today is going to be Willie Waffle. Don't call him William. Willie Waffle. with wafflemovies.com. I think we're going to get a chance to talk about the new Snow White movie, which, oh man, I'm hearing it's getting killed out there. But we'll see. We'll see what's going on. We'll see what Willie has to say about it. Anyway, that's coming up at the the end of the show, just to lighten things up a little bit here for the end of the day. So we appreciate you guys coming in and joining us today. So again, we talked a little bit with Darwin about, some of the concerns that we had initially with President Trump's second term, and on how it seemed like that it was working out, that the president was taking some pretty strong stances. We were a little concerned again about his appointment of Pam Bondi and some of her past history that may have come out. And it is a little disconcerting that they've missed the deadline for the executive order on the review of all the firearm stuff. But at the same time, there's also some hope. Case in point, the DOJ had said just a couple days ago that acting U.S. Attorney General Michael Simpson was in a case called U.S. v. Peterson, where a 3-judge panel recently upheld Peterson's 2-year prison sentence for illegal possession of an unregistered silencer. Part of the argument made by U.S. Attorney Michael Simpson for the ATF was that a suppressor is a crime. The suppressor is not a firearm, but that possession of a suppressor not registered is a crime. So he goes on to basically say, arguing that suppressors are not arms and not protected by the Second Amendment, because Peterson's attorney basically came back and said, well, it can't be illegal because it's a firearm and it's protected by the Second Amendment. So his argument was, well, they're not. It's not an arm. But how can that be? How can that be, since U.S. Code 265845 says that any silencer is a firearm and is covered by this statute? What? The what? And so this came about. He posits that the suppressor is an integral part of a firearm. The Peterson's lawyers argued that the suppressor is an integral part of the firearm and therefore warrants Second Amendment protection. But the acting attorney said no. And the judges, they themselves said no, even though the statute obviously posits that the silencers are basically firearms under the NFA. This is some of that same Kafka-esque type language where they just start to twist and turn and make words mean things that they did. I mean, this is again this is the same agency, the ATF, that declared that a string was a machine gun, right? So definitely problematic. But the good news is that the DOJ is now backing off this position. Gun Owners of America said after GOA and the Gun Foundation broke the news that a Biden-era holdover, acting U.S. attorney, argued that suppressors are not arms and are not protected by the Second Amendment, the Justice Department is now requesting a 30-day delay to reconsider its anti-gun brief. I mean, that's some good news. Now, again, they're just asking for the 30-day delay, but the only real reason that they would do something like that is because they're trying to figure out how to back out of it gracefully. And that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy that is the direction that they're going. And it is, I mean, it's going to be some great stuff. Add that to the fact that the most recent appointment is a brand new Second Amendment or brand new ATF General Counsel. George Mason law professor Robert Leiter is now the ATF's new General Counsel and assistant director. And that is a huge win for us on the pro-gun side. Leiter has done some writing for, I don't know if you've seen that he's done some writing for Reason Magazine on the Volk Conspiracy blog. And it's very exciting to see that this guy is now the new general counsel for the ATF. And it's good stuff. The Volk Conspiracy writes a little bit about it as well. And this is a guy who has got a lot of good ink out there about the Second Amendment and about how you protect it. It's some good stuff. So there are positives out there. There are positives, and we're looking forward to seeing more wins in that category. President said we'd be sick of winning at some point. I'm not there yet, but it's good to see, especially in the 2A space, what's happening and where we're going on this right now. So the ATF, or excuse me, the DOJ now reversing itself, asking for that stay. We'll see what comes of that here in the near future. All right, let's go over to the phones. 319-527-3864. Looks like Fred is on the line from out in Rhode Island. Fred calls in usually every week to visit with us from the East Coast out there. Let's see what he has to say. Good morning, Fred. How are you, my friend?
Hey, good morning, Michael. 2 points I want to bring up today is, the first one, they talk about these accessories not being firearms. Well, they're an essential part of the firearm. That's like saying an automobile, an automobile without gasoline is an accessory to an automobile. But then again, without the gasoline, the automobile is something you can park on your lawn to cover up that bald spot that never grows any grass.
Right.
It's totally useless without it. So the point is, even though maybe it's not, a licensed firearm component to make it, the firearm itself, whether it be a bump stock or whether it be a pistol grip or whether it be a heat shield or a flash hider or anything else for that matter, or a magazine for that matter, it's still an important part of the firearm itself. And without it, you don't have the entire tool without it. It's kind of either you have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, it's totally dysfunctional, and you wouldn't have any. It wouldn't be useful at all without it. So yeah, they would be, by limiting the accessory, you're limiting the firearm, and limiting the firearm is a violation of the Second Amendment.
No, I mean, I agree totally. And in fact, that was the position that Peterson's lawyers took on this. They said, again, it's an integral part of the firearm. And they said, in so much as the bullet must pass through an attached suppressor to arrive at an intended target, suppressors are used for casting and striking, and thus fits the Heller definition. So it definitely is part and parcel of the firearm. And again, even the NFA agrees. But this is what they try and do. This is the incrementalism that we've seen, Fred, in the past, where they try and say, well, it's not the gun, it's this piece, or it's not this, it's like you said, it's the bullets. They're going to try and take a tack on this at every opportunity to try and slowly dismantle it. And that's how they've gotten to where they are today, through this incrementalism that we've seen over the years.
They're going to throw everything against the wall and see what sticks, because, their agenda is their agenda. And their agenda is to disarm, eliminate the Second Amendment and disarm everybody in the country, except they're the ones who are going to be keeping the guns. And that where that goes. We know exactly where that goes. History is proven that time and time again. The other thing I want to bring up is the bulk majority. Everything. The more I look at the situation throughout the country, especially here in Rhode Island now, the more these people are anti-gun, the more ignorant that they really are. And I'm going to call them out on. They are ignorant. They have no idea what the hell they're talking about. It's always been the case. But, it's because of their lack of knowledge, their lack of understanding, as to what this is all about and how it works and what's in common use. AR-15 is no different than, Grandpa's bolt action 30-06. It's in reality, there's nothing. It's fueled on ignorance. It is, and they buy it. The problem, the sad part is they buy it. They eat it up. They eat it up totally as gospel, and they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. But this is what they're basing law on, which makes you wonder what else in our legislature, whether it be in the national scene or federal scene or the state scene. What else are they not aware of?
Yeah, that's been my argument.
Spending, Doge money. You look at Doge money.
That's been my argument for a long time, Fred.
It's a wonderful idea. There's nothing but tyranny. It's nothing but abuse. It's open abuse and stupidity.
That's been my argument for a long time, Fred. Is that the Congress has been making laws on things that they don't necessarily intimately understand. I mean, again, the whole Carolyn McCarthy, what's a barrel shroud? It's a shoulder thing that goes up thing. They're making rules and regs about things that they don't even understand on a fundamental level. But again, that's their argument then to bring in, well, that's why we need to have the departments help put this together because they're the experts and blah, blah, blah. No, if you're going to make a law that's going to affect every man, woman, and child in this country, it either needs to be a basic law that everybody can understand, including yourself, or it ought not to be there. That's what needs to happen.
Well, it should be based on fact, not fiction. And the entire Progressive Party is nothing but a collection of fictions, is all it is. And not only a collection of fictions, I'd like to know who's pulling their strings. And once again, I'm going to go back to the globalist concept, where we're being manipulated. People are trying to. Sources outside this country are trying to rule this country and trying to destroy this country and tear it down and build it up into some third world cesspool. The way I see it, it's just crazy.
Well,
it's absolutely crazy. So we have to resist. We have to say enough is enough. And I think we did that when we elected Trump. Now it's a question of finishing the game.
Right. Well, and I think you're seeing that the winds are swinging in our favor. Again, you're seeing all the, over the last 5 years, you've seen more first-time gun owners, more women, more minorities, more moderates, and more Democrats engaging in the gun culture, finding out that it wasn't as scary or bad as everybody was saying it was. It wasn't as easy to get a gun as it was to get a library book, and they were discovering that their rights were being impeded, especially when there was a time crunch. So I think you're starting to see that pendulum swing. The thing is, we just need to keep the pressure on so that it continues. That's what we need to do.
Well, like you've been saying all along, Mike, it's the criminal. It's the criminal who has no intention of following any law that they pass. They're going to do whatever they want to do, and that's always been the problem from day one. But instead of dealing with the criminal, they're going after law-abiding citizens, in their Second Amendment rights. I think it has.
Right.
I think it definitely is. It needs a deep dig. It needs a deep dive, investigation as to what's going on.
Right.
Who's behind it?
Well,
it really does. It's long overdue.
Right. They go after the law-abiding citizens, Fred, because the law-abiding citizens are easy to go after because it's the low-hanging fruit. It's hard to find those criminals sometimes, but it's easy to be seen as doing something because you pass a law, and then the only ones that are affected are the law-abiding citizens. They are the low-hanging fruit, and that's part of the problem. Hold the line, Fred. Folks, we got more.
The old saying,
Yeah, hold on,
okay.
Fred. Folks, we got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
All right, welcome back. We'll give Fred here final bite at the apple this morning. Fred, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was up against the break. Go ahead and give me your thoughts here.
Right. Well, like it's been said, the road to hell has been paved with good intentions, and I think that's exactly what we're dealing with here. People think that they're doing the right thing, and I think they're just opening up the gateway for a lot of bad things to happen. I mean, all you have to do is look at Germany in 1938. You look at China with that's Ho Chi Minh. Mao Zedong. I mean, you look at every dictatorship and tyrant-like government in the world, and that's exactly how it began. And if they haven't learned the lesson by now, boy, I'll tell you, that's the ultimate definition of stupid, if there ever was one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. We've got to see where this leads us. Anybody who's been a student of history could see that that was where it was going to take us. And so you're right. we need to pay attention to the lessons of history, or we will be doomed to repeat them over and over and over again. All right, Fred. Well, it's good to talk with you, my friend. Thanks for coming on board this morning.
Okay, you take care, Mike. Take care now.
You bet. 319-527-3864, 319-527-3864. If you would like to sound off, we'd love to hear from you today on Firearms Friday, talking about guns and gun rights and stuff like that. It's going to be good stuff. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'll get to this New Jersey story in just a moment. And we will talk a little bit more about the new ATF chief counsel as well. And it should be a really, I mean, we should be very excited about what's happening and what's going on overall in the country. I guess I'm just looking at some of the other things. There's another story that came out about Pam Bondi, which again is kind of restoring my faith in this whole thing. And that's a story that's being covered by Tom Knighton over at bearingarms.com that talks about her move to have gun rights restored. And it's I think it's going to be some good stuff. We'll talk about that as well. And then, of course, we'll be joined by Willie Waffle at the end of the show today. All right. Let's go back to the chat room to see what you guys have been talking about. See if there's anything. You guys. I see Harold's in full TDS mode this morning. I mean, just talking about a guy who can't read the room. He jumps into the room and then immediately starts spouting off about stuff that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. That's okay. Jeannie says a suppressor isn't useful unless it's attached to the end of a barrel. Again, it's true. But if the statute calls it a firearm and it's being regulated like a firearm, then by golly, should it have the same protections as a firearm? That, I think, is the whole point of Peterson's defense, which I think makes sense in that regard. Teresa said, saw a movie a long time ago where a guy used a pillow to silence the shot. Are pillows being vilified too then? I mean, again, if you understand the mechanics of a suppressor, it's not that hard to improvise in that case. So, I mean, is this the road that we're going down? I mean, they've already started that with 80% lowers and things like that, remember, because it was just a block of aluminum. And now the Biden administration was trying to regulate it as if it was a full-fledged firearm. I mean, at what point do you have to go down to Home Depot and fill out a 4473 to be able to buy some pipe and tubing and other bits and pieces that could potentially maybe be built into some kind of firearm, right? That's the question. That's where it comes down to. Anyway, so yeah, that's again, anything can be an assault weapon. That's what it comes down to. Anything can be an assault weapon at that point. Okay. So I think we're all caught up. Everybody else is, we're back into some of the comments during Darwin's part. So we're here to go. Let's jump into it and like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can accept that. Here's Michael Dukes. Kind of a dick, but somewhat funny.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I guess he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Not wrong. Welcome back. Phone lines are open today for Firearms Friday. If you have gun talk that you want to discuss, things you want to talk about, now is the time to jump in and do it. Here is the number if you want to participate today, 319-527-3864, 319-527-3864. And Firearms Friday is not necessarily designed for the pro-gun crowd. I mean, I love to have you here, and we enjoy our time together every Friday. But we started this show not for the pro-gun people and not really for the anti-gun people, but for the gun curious, for those people in the middle. And so if you've got questions about firearms, maybe you're like, well, I've always thought about it, but, I don't want to look stupid when I walk into a gun store and ask a bunch of questions. You could call in, and we'll try and answer those questions for you. I mean, the whole premise and the slogan of Firearms Friday is that there's no such thing as a dumb gun question. If you've got a question about guns, we probably have an answer, and we would love to help you out with that. So again, 319-527-3864. Give us a call, and we'll talk about that. Because the whole point, again, is to try and demystify the firearm. Here in Alaska, we've got a pretty strong Second Amendment community, right? I mean, we've got a pretty strong, even amongst, Democrats or semi-progressives or whatever in this state, there's people, they believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I mean, we hear about Andy Josephson's red flag law, HB 89. And I mean, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. The chances of it actually moving and doing anything are extraordinarily slim, in my opinion. And as I said earlier, I think as I said last week, I said, yeah, I mean, that'd be great. Put it out on the floor, get it out for the floor. Let's have these people take a position with a vote and see where they're at. Because I think a lot of them would be voted out, in a heartbeat over a bill like that. But we're here to try and demystify and take away some of the stigma and just give you some good, solid, common sense facts about guns and gun rights and laws and things like that. That's what Firearms Friday is all about. And we're going to cover some of the news, including this story, which we mentioned from Darwin Nercesian, which he mentioned in passing. But this story, again, it just kind of blows my mind that you've got people out there who are on the one hand so against you and I owning firearms, saying that, only the police, only the government, only the military should have firearms. That we shouldn't be. They're the only ones who could be trusted enough to do that. And at the same time, without any cognitive dissonance, without any self-reflection, a few seconds later, they'll talk about how we need to defund the police because they can't be trusted, because they're racist and they're abusive, and all the other things that we've heard over the last 4 years about the police. It's this dichotomy between the two that just, it's fascinating to watch. And part of it's fascinating as well because you see the dichotomy of real life, that police, like any other profession, are made up of people. And there are good people and there are bad people. You can't treat anyone like it's some kind of monolithic thing. And that's part of the problem that I have with the right, quite honestly, is that everybody on the right is like, oh, the thin blue line, the boys in blue, you must support the police no matter what. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to support the police if they're doing the wrong thing. If you have bad actors in there that are doing the wrong thing, they need to go. And instead, they seem to unify to protect even people who are doing bad things and that's part of the problem, right? Because there are police who are out there who are doing bad things and break the law. And in fact, what's ironic about the whole argument of they're the only ones that are trustworthy enough to have firearms, not you and me. The ironic part is, again, the statistic that we talked about last week, I think, with Dr. John Lott. which has, been proven time and time and time again, that, for example, concealed carry permit holders are more law-abiding than police officers, than law enforcement. By a huge factor, that more law enforcement officers are prosecuted for crimes and convicted of crimes than concealed carry permit holders as a percentage of their whole. And yet, here's another example. In New Jersey, a lieutenant in charge of the New Jersey Department of Corrections gun ranges was recently arrested for stealing and selling what authority says amounts to almost $500,000 in ammunition. 56-year-old Timothy John Morris of Bayville was charged on March 11th with second-degree official misconduct, second-degree theft, and third-degree structuring financial transactions. According to the criminal complaint, as the agency's range master, he was responsible for ordering and maintaining its ammunition inventory. However, they discovered that he's been ordering an overabundance of ammunition since at least early 2019 and selling it to a gun supply store, which paid him directly via cash and check. At the time of printing of this article, it was believed that Morris made off with millions of rounds and saw personal profits in excess of $475,000. I mean, my first question is, how did this go on for 6 years? Where they, $500,000 worth of ammunition out the door. That's a lot of rounds. How did somebody not say, we needed to be shooting all day, every day, 2 hours a day for, how did somebody, apparently somebody did eventually find it, but I'm just like, how does that happen? And then he obviously concealed his actions by cashing the checks at different banks, all under the amount of $10,000 to try and avoid the mandatory reporting requirements. So now he was booked, but he was released from the jail and he's suspended pending the case's outcome. This is a guy who already made, by the way, $180,000 a year. Now he's going to face 25 years in prison and fines up to $315,000 if he's convicted. But again, just because you wear the blue, have the badge, do whatever, does not immediately make them above being human and being wrong, being criminals, having the wrong ideas. We see it time and time. Audit the Audit. If you ever want to watch something that'll make your blood boil, just go watch Audit the Audit on YouTube. And you could see exactly why there are people out there that are wearing the uniform that probably ought not to be. And until we get a police organization, until they start calling out their own and stop protecting them, we're still going to continue to have some problems like this for sure. All right, we got to go. We're up against the break. Willie Waffle is going to be joining us in a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. And we're over here doing the things. Let me go catch up here on what's going on. Harold, nobody cares. Nobody really cares about what, you're, I don't even know why I even point. It's just like, it's like the verbal hand grenade, right? Throw it out there and just watch people spin. Anyway, Debbie says, yes, you can have bad people in any sector or job. People are people, right? There's good people in every, whether it's police officers or priests or, janitors, it doesn't matter. Anybody can do good things, do bad things, have evil in their heart. I mean, that it's ridiculous. But again, just this dichotomy of a lot of those on the left who are like, the police are the only ones that should have guns. And then 12 seconds later, oh, those bastards in blue, we need to defund the police because they're racist and they're this and that and the other thing. And you're like, can you make up your mind? Can you make it can't, that seems like those are two ideas that are completely at odds with each other. Can we make another decision? Yeah, maybe it is. Chris says bipolar, maybe. I mean, maybe that's what it, but again, I think it comes back to that, just the intellectual dishonesty of holding those two opposing viewpoints in their mind at the same time. And then as Darwin was saying, they don't think anything of it. They just don't think, it's whatever it is to achieve their argument. It's about, again, and I think somebody said earlier, it's the feels. I think it is about the feeling in a lot of ways. And it's based on emotion and not on fact or logic or reason. And that's part of the problem we have to do with today's society. We're all taught to, I mean, I'm not one of those guys that's the stoic, I never cry, I never, but we've got to take the emotion out of a lot of the things that we do. And we just don't do that. It's like we have to be ruled by it's like the embracing of him. Well, how do you feel about that? And again, facts don't care about your feelings. If we can deal with basis, especially big decisions of a legal nature or as far as national policy issues and things like that, if we can get away from the feelings of it, the emotion of it, we would make a lot better decisions, I think, in this country. But again, part of the whole political process is about feelings too, right? Oh, we love our guy. We love our our Messiah. And this is a left and a right problem too. It's the same thing. Obama, the hope. Remember the poster, hope. And then people on the right are like, oh, Trump, he's the best thing since Jesus Christ. And he's and no, he's a man like anybody else. They're all men and women. They're all people. Stop looking to them like you're some kind of savior. But that's part of that emotion that's in there as well. We need to get down to brass tacks and focus on the facts of the issues, the rational facts, and stop dealing from this position of emotion. That even applies to the whole Doge thing, but people are going to get hurt. And I feel bad about that. I really do. But we can't let your boo-hooing about people being hurt counteract the fact that we are out of money and we're going to have a financial crash if we don't change something. Something has to be done. I mean, you show me pictures of all the little kids in the oncology ward at the hospital, the little 7-year-olds who are bald as a cue ball and look sickly and emaciated, and my heart breaks for them because they're getting treatment for cancer. But a big chunk of those kids will come out and live full lives. So it was good in the long run. They did get sick, and it was sad, and it was horrible for them to have to go through the pain and the suffering, but it was to live on the other side. And that's the same thing we need to be looking at with our governments and with our spending, or with the laws on firearms, or whatever it is we're talking about. We need to look at it as it's a short-term pain for long-term gain. It's crazy out there. All right. Let me my dog. Hey. My dog had his face laying on the light. Like, I don't know what happened there. I lost the light. All right, we're going to jump back into this here. And to get with it, phone's buzzing, and we're going to do it. Let's get back to it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do this thing. Here we go. Okay, we're ready. Oh, the weekend is here. Don't forget, come out and visit with me, or come see me, I guess, tomorrow. If you're in the Homer area for the Winter King tournament, starts tomorrow, kickoff at like 9 a.m. It's going to be fun. We're going to be broadcasting all day, on and off all day. Anyway, let's get to it. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. The man, the myth, the legend in his own mind. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hey, I gotta live in my own mind. It's a much more comfortable place, babe.
It is. Well, nobody else will go in there and clean it up. That place is, it's like a teenager's room on crack or something. Yeah. It's like an emo teenager's room is what it looks like in there. All right. Willie, let's get into it, man. Been kind of a slow news week, but we got a lot of movies and streams to talk about. So let's just get started.
Okay.
What's coming back? I'm excited to hear about some of the things that are going to come back. Let's get to it.
Yeah, this was a big week for streaming services to let you know that stuff that you like is going to come back for another season. So, and Paramount Plus really kind of was leading the charge this week. They announced this week that they're bringing back for season 3 Sylvester Stallone's Tulsa King. And it's in production as we speak.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
That's a Taylor Sheridan joint.
Yep. I think that means they want to bring it out in the fall. So I think you're going to see it a lot sooner rather than later.
Nice.
And they also announced that you're going to get season 2 of Billy Bob Thornton's Landman. Now, they just kind of made the deal. They don't really know when it's going to come out again, but that's what I wanted to hear. Because if you've ever seen Landman, I think you have. I think we've talked about this. It's the Billy Bob Thornton show.
Yeah.
And he is awesome. And he is the best character in the whole show. He gets all the best lines. He gets all the best situations. And I want to see more Billy Bob Thornton.
It's an amazing show. It really is. I'm not done with it yet, but it is an amazing show. I mean, it's like raw and tells you like it is, like most of us feel, not like how the woke Hollywood crowd feels, but like how most of us feel, which is really weird coming out of Hollywood. But yeah, and it's been a smash hit.
Oh, it's been big. It's been big. And the only thing I can think that might be bigger right now in the streaming world, this was a little seismic, I'm not going to lie. Apple TV Plus has shocked the world by announcing that we are going to get a season number 4 of Ted Lasso with Jason Sudeikis. And the reason this is shocking is because they were very adamant for a long time. There would only be 3 seasons. They would tell the whole story in 3 seasons. If you've seen how it ended, you understand that it ended after 3 seasons. And now they're going to bring it back for a 4th? Sounds like a little bit of money grab. A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay. I've never watched Ted Lasso. I don't even know what it's about, but I know I've heard people mention it, so I know it's probably pretty popular.
It's a very charming show. And it came out right in the middle of COVID. And it was kind of like the show a lot of people wanted, where just people were nice to each other. And Ted Lasso is a failed football coach who gets hired to coach a soccer team in England, because they're intentionally trying to tank the team. But you know what? The man can coach, and he can help people get their lives together. And he brings everyone together to make their lives better. It's a really good series if you ever get a chance to watch it.
Well, we'll have to see how they do on bringing it back. If they ended it so severely, maybe we'll have to see what they do with it. So we'll find it out. Are we already talking about Oscars of next year? Come on, man. We just talked about the Oscars. You know how much I hate that. What's going on?
I know. Well, this is actually a big deal. This is the earliest that I can remember the Oscar host being named. So yes, we will have the Oscars in 2026 hosted once again by Conan O'Brien, who maybe didn't raise the overall ratings all that much, but really did give them a spike in streaming viewing and in a younger demographic. And so they signed him up right away before he had a chance to hold out for more money. So Conan's back.
And that's going to be a year from now, essentially. It'll be a year from now.
It's going to be late next year. It's going to be like March 15th next year.
Wow.
That's really late.
All right. Well, we'll have to see what happens. I will still not watch the Oscars, even if it's got Conan O'Brien. It don't matter. It's all good. All right. There was some trouble in those mean streets, the mean streets of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. What happened there?
The Snow White movie just can't escape controversy. And this week was a great example. Star Gal Gadot was given her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Now, usually these things are a promotional tie-in. Usually when you get your star on the Walk of Fame, like your TV show is premiering or your new movie is premiering. So, in that tradition, Snow White's opening up this week. They were looking at this as a positive public relations kind of activity. It's not. The whole ceremony got delayed 15 minutes as pro and anti-Israeli protesters got into it on the streets of Hollywood, man.
Wow.
There was some yelling and some screaming. Matter of fact, if you see the footage of the ceremony, you can still hear the protesters in the background, and you can hear them yelling, and they were carrying signs, and somebody stole a flag from one of the other groups, and it was really, really not what I think Miss Godot had been dreaming about her entire life. But what really got me and what really shocked me, nobody from the movie was there.
Oh, so Godot was there, but nobody else showed up.
Nobody else. And so director Patty Jenkins was there from Wonder Woman. Vin Diesel was there from Fast and the Furious, gave her one of her first acting jobs. But where were all the Snow White people? I mean, like this is supposed to help promote the movie. Just kind of leans more into the stories that we're hearing that people don't get along on this movie.
Yeah, no,
they just don't. Doesn't
sound like the House of Mouse is a friendly place to be these days. That's all I'm saying right now. Definitely not a friendly place to be. All right, well, that's pretty much all the stories. So that brings us up to our streams, and we've got the aforementioned Snow White. We got that new Netflix series, Adolescence, a new Peacock series called Long Bright River, and a new Paramount series called Happy Face. So you know what? I'm going to let you in charge, brother. Where are we going to go?
All
best
right.
to worst, worst to best? What do you want to do?
I will go worst to best so that we can talk a lot about Snow White. So here we go. Adolescence, a Netflix miniseries. Now it's a 4-part series, and each part is essentially shot in real time. So like day 1 is episode 1. A 13-year-old boy has been accused of murdering a classmate. The police show up. They're hauling him out of the house. They're driving him downtown. They're putting him in a holding cell. They're interviewing him. They're showing what evidence they have. And this all happens in real time, almost like one long take.
I was just going to say, it's one long continuous shot, isn't it? My wife was talking to me about this yesterday. She's like, yeah, they shoot the whole thing in like one shot. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. And I think there, of the 4 episodes, 2 were really, really good and 2 were kind of okay. So like day 1 is, oh my God, is one of the greatest setups you'll ever see. Then the next episode is like a couple of days later. They're interviewing the kids at school. They're trying to find out what really happened. They're trying to find the murder weapon. They're finding all that stuff. Then you've got another episode that's a few months later where this kid is now meeting with a therapist and they're trying to do a psychological evaluation, and you're seeing different parts of his personality. You're seeing, maybe a little bit more of the real him now that he's kind of almost come to grips with the situation he's in. And then the last episode is essentially over a year later. It's the kid's father's birthday. And we see all the ways that family's been ripped apart. They've been just harassed in the neighborhood, horrible things done to their house, and you see kind of the end of the court case, if I will say so. And I think that you've got some really great acting in here. Stephen Graham as the father. He's also the writer of the series, and he's perfect. I mean, he just captures all that confusion, all that love, and all that anger that any father would feel. And the way he tries to stand by his kid, tries to, profess this kid's innocence is painful to watch. And you get it. You understand it.
Right.
You got Owen Cooper playing the kid who really takes the character from being a very scared, weak, meek, mild kid to then being kind of a jerk. And kind of somebody who's trying to control situations and trying to express his machismo, but yet still has that desire to have somebody validate him. I'm at 2.5 waffles.
Okay.
I think it runs out of steam towards the end, and I thought that was the most disappointing part.
All right. Well, let's go over to the next one then.
I will go with Happy Face. This is a new Paramount Plus series. The first 2 episodes are out. And if you want to tune in every Thursday for the next 6 weeks, you'll see the rest of them. I know you love that.
I love that, yeah.
And it's Annalee Ashford is she basically works in the makeup department for a Dr. Phil type show. And it turns out she's been hiding from, her children and from her employer that her father is a notorious serial killer played by Dennis Quaid. But she can't hide it anymore because in an attempt to get back in touch with her and to play his silly mind games, he basically offers up that he will reveal another victim that he killed that nobody knows about. And she thinks it's just a control thing. Oh, the Dr. Phil show or the stand-in Dr. Phil show wants the story.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right? And so, it becomes kind of this power play between Ashford and Quaid. And you're watching it for Dennis Quaid because he's just as goofy and scary and unhinged as you think a serial killer would be. And you see all the manipulation that he's playing on her and the way he's pulling on her emotions and the way he's trying to control everybody in the situation to basically entertain himself. I'm at 2.5 waffles here. Again, I think it's kind of, I want more detail. I want more depth. And Annalee Ashford's a good actress, but I think she's a better comedy actress than serious actress.
Okay. All right. That brings us to Long Bright River.
My Surprise Peacock series, all 8 episodes available right now at the same time. Yeah. And Amanda Seyfried is a Philadelphia cop who works in one of the worst neighborhoods you can imagine. And it's the neighborhood she came from. She knows a lot of these women who now are homeless or they're addicted to drugs. They're doing things you don't want them to be doing. And she kind of feels like she needs to watch over them. And her sister has gone missing. Her sister is a very troubled drug addict. And as she's investigating, there appears to be some sort of serial killer on the loose. And we are seeing her trying to solve the crime. We are seeing her trying to deal with all the things that have happened in her life and how they're starting to tie in to where she has found herself and the people she's investigating. It hit me emotionally more than I thought it would. At first, I'm like, I want more of a crime story. I want more of a mystery. And the personal stuff starts to grow on you and really starts to get involved in the series. I'm at 3 waffles. I actually liked it.
Wow. Okay. All right. So that's Long Bright River on Peacock, which brings us to the big kahuna, Snow Woke, you said. No, Snow White in theaters. Give me the rundown here. We got about 4 minutes here.
4 minutes? Okay. This is not your mama's Snow White. This is not your daddy's Snow White. This isn't even Snow White. Okay? I'm going to say it right now. They have changed like 95% of the music. They have changed like 90% of the story. They're just hanging their hat on, well, we still have a Snow White. We still have an evil stepmother queen, and she still runs into the 7 dwarfs. And a lot of other stuff is different. And that's what gets me. This is not Snow White. If you want to tell a different story, tell a different story.
Right.
But don't use Snow White because, well, we know we'll sell some more tickets that way. And so I think that's what really, for me, it hurts the movie. I mean, they do change a great deal. They give you a lot more background about Snow White and her mother and father before they were no longer in her life, rather than like in the original where we just kind of show up and the queen's like, who's the fairest in the land? What do you mean it's Snow White? Get rid of her. And in this one, she's not pining away for true love. She wants to take back the kingdom because her mother and father, they were benevolent dictators. They would give everything to all the people of the land, and they would all share their food and they would share their riches. They didn't bring democracy, by the way. They still were dictators, all right? But they were nice dictators. Well, she wants to bring that back. She wants to be the hero of the people that they want. She wants to bring back the good old days. She wants to make the kingdom great again. And that's the story. And, she doesn't fall in love with a prince, my friend. Oh, no. She falls in love with a thief who wants to fight against the bad guys. Wow. Yeah, he's a bad boy. And she's digging it.
Wow, man. So like a socialist dictatorial utopia and everything. I mean, what the hell, man? I got about a minute here. What how does it do? I mean, setting aside the fact that it's a whole different story, how does it play?
if it was a whole different story and it wasn't called Snow White, I think I would like it better. I mean, listen, Rachel Zegler, who plays Snow White, is a good singer. And she does very well in musicals. I don't know if she's the powerful woman that they want her to portray here. Although in a sense, it seems to make sense for the character, right? She's a young kid. She's trying to rise up for the first time, trying to stand up against somebody that's been basically holding her in a prison for years. So okay, that works. Gal Gadot, great as the evil queen. She's nasty. She's mean. She's evil. You feel it here. And then, I think, the story's kind of a traditional, almost this neo-traditional woke story, where,
all right, I'm sorry. I got to interrupt you. We're at the end. -1 to 4 waffles. Where are we at?
I'm at 1 waffle.
Hold me back. All right, we're out of time, folks. We'll see you on Monday. All right, I want to dissect this. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to, but I was up against the break. But I mean, okay, so first of all, I'm trying to wrap my brain around the idea that they're selling this as Snow White. That's the whole thing. It's a live action retelling of Snow White. That's like saying you did the live action of the Lion King and Simba, was buddy with his uncle instead of something else, and it was a whole different deal, and it was another tribe of hyenas that killed Mustafa, and I mean, you're going in expecting a certain thing. I mean, that's almost deceptive at that point, right? And then, of course, we heard about all the controversy, and now to change the story so radically on top of everything else, that just seems like, I mean, I'm going to say it. I think Disney is damaging themselves. I don't know if it's beyond repair, but man, they're if this is what they're doing, they're going to have some problems.
Well, I think Disney is saying we're dropping an entire generation and we're dropping a group of people because we think that the new audience is going to start to embrace this. Now, it hasn't happened yet. That's been kind of that's been what's been hurting Disney for the last several years. I mean, they are in many ways alienating traditional families that want to see those stories, not see them woked up and changed for modern times. I mean, if that's what if you want to tell the stories, go ahead, but don't put the banner of Snow White on it to try to, it's craven, it's crass. It's, we know you're going to pay money to see Snow White because you have this emotional connection to it, and then we're going to completely change it, but it won't matter because we'll already have your dollar.
Right. And I think, again, by poking people in the eye repeatedly, which is kind of what they're doing here, they are damaging the brand itself. I mean, I think that's the big problem because now people aren't going to trust them to do something else. I mean, Maleficent was amazing, right? I mean, there's been some amazing Disney movies that have come out as live action and everything else, but they keep missing the point of why people, it's like they don't understand. Why are you guys upset about this? This is a great story. Why are you upset about this? This is empowering. Why are you upset about this? Because they don't like it. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to. You make stories that the people want to see. That's what you do, and they keep missing that point.
Yeah, you said it better than I could, and I think that this is why I think they're going to have to, in some way, abandon doing the live action versions of their old movies. Now, on one hand, they've run out of movies. I mean, there's a few more left, but I don't know how many more they have left where they can do this. I think they're better off, creating new characters and new stories like they've done with Pixar. Pixar has been the most successful thing that's come out of Disney in the last 25, 30 years. And I think that they would be better off sticking with that kind of storytelling, creating new characters, creating new stories. Okay, yes, some of them are based on other books. I get that. But, they're not trying to rehash The Lion King. They're not trying to rehash Snow White. They're not trying to rehash
taking
Dumbo.
beloved properties and wrecking them. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the danger.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, look at the history of Snow White. Snow White, is in many ways considered one of the great animated films because it was one of the first ones. It was one of the first full-length animated films back in 1937. It was something that people hadn't seen before. And yes, it was based on an old fairy tale. but it was an old fairy tale that not many people still knew. It was an old fairy tale that people couldn't watch on Disney Plus whenever they wanted to.
Right.
So, you just can't do that this day and age. Everything you've ever wanted to see is still around. So, you know what? If you want to see Snow White, get your Disney Plus subscription rocking and watch it there, because this is a different story. It's not really Snow White.
Not to mention all the controversy around it, surrounding all the other stuff. Again, I just don't think that they're doing themselves any favors at this point.
Well, and that's the other thing. They already had the controversy of reviving Snow White, and the word got out that they were changing the story around. But then your star, Rachel Zegler, just does everything she can to alienate people. It's the old Michael Jordan saying, even if Michael Jordan didn't say it, Republicans buy sneakers too. So Rachel Zegler, when you're the star of Snow White, and on the day after the election, you put out on social media that you hope Donald Trump and his supporters never know peace, you just alienated half your audience.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be what's going to be the tell, though, is the box office. Of course, it's just coming out. Willie gets all the extra early screenings and everything, but we'll see next week. I'll be interested. In fact, that's your homework for next week. Box Office Mojo. Tell me what they did, because I have a feeling it's not going to be great, man. It's just not going to be great.
The early predictions right now are somewhere between 40 and 50 million domestically, and maybe 55 million worldwide. So now maybe Disney is kind of playing it soft. Maybe they're bringing lower estimates because they want it to be higher and surprise everybody that it's a big hit, even with the controversies, right? Or they'll say it's $100 million movie. How is that a failure? So I'm with you. I'll be interested. I will be not only interested to see the real dollars, I'll be interested to see the spin.
Yeah, the spin will be interesting to watch. All right, what are we watching next week, Willie?
Oh my gosh, next week. Oh, we have The Working Man with Jason Statham. Oh, Jason Statham. He's very angry, and someone's gone missing, and he's going to find her because he don't mess around.
Those are some of my favorite movies, because usually they're just such straightforward, shoot 'em ups. I love it. All right, so we'll catch that next week. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Thank you, my friend. Good to talk with you. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right, folks, gotta go. We'll see you on Monday. Be kind. Love one another. Sorry, I had to sneeze. We'll see. Come on out and see me tomorrow if you're in Homer. We'll be down at the pier. All right. We'll see you then. We're out.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.